Regular meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Ossining for May 26, 2016. Everybody please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any, no, do you want to pass the? Are you insinuating I can't yell at you just because of that? Can you hear? Again, this is better.
Councilperson DeTore,
Present.
Councilperson Jeffrey,
Present.
Councilperson Feldman,
Present.
Councilperson Wilshire,
Present.
and Supervisor Levenberg.
Present.
Do we have any announcements this evening?
We do. Good evening, everybody. We have a couple of items on our regular meeting agenda this evening. After that, we plan to adjourn the regular meeting into a work session at 7:30, or slightly later, depending on when our mayor of Ossining is able to make it here. We will discuss our historic joint work session a little bit later this evening. I do want to say that we may have to curtail some portions of our regular meeting, so we may make our mark to start the work session on time, since that part of tonight's meeting has required quite a bit of coordinating. For our regular meeting, we start off approving our minutes and a voucher detail. Following that, we have an agreement for engineering services by Charles A. Manganero. Andy Teese, the water superintendent whom we contract with, will speak about that a little later. This work pertains to a project that the New York State Department of Transportation is undertaking to replace an outsized culvert at the western side of 9A and Route 134, Croton Dam Road. We have a sewer line there that will be impacted and we need to divert it. We will do the drawings and oversight of the work, but DOT will carry out the actual work to lay new pipes and divert the line while work is underway before the new lines are operational. We had started this work with our planning engineer several months back, as did the village for the water transmission design component, but for personal reasons, our engineer needed to take a step back from the project. Andy Teese recommended we work with Manganero, as the village works with them frequently and has had great experiences with them on past projects. The village has contracted with them to perform the water system design services, and we plan to utilize their fine services as well for the town portion of the sewer work. The next resolution on our agenda of the regular meeting appoints a new laborer to work at Dale Cemetery for the summer months, the busiest season. I am happy to report the cemetery is looking excellent and we're doing very well selling new plots. A shout out to our cemetery superintendent, Pete Connolly, and his staff for all their hard work getting the cemetery prepped for the various events coming up to recognize our veterans for Memorial Day. Following that, we have two resolutions that have to do with setting the standard work days for certain employees and elected officials as it pertains to the New York State Retirement Fund reporting requirements. This resolution will be posted publicly for 30 days so that the public has a chance to review the work that your elected officials are being credited with doing. Please take the chance to review it. We have a budget transfer from our fund balance in various funds to cover tax certiorari's for the 2016 year, which have either already been negotiated or are anticipated to be negotiated this year. The good news is these are projected to be much lower than they have been in previous years, and they've been coming down annually for the past several years, thanks to all the hard work in our assessor's office getting assessments up to market value, and to our deputy controller, who has been working hard to make sure the payments are made timely. Thank you, Dan. I am recommending that we do not borrow for these obligations, but instead use fund balance to pay for these refunds, as it is not work that will last beyond this year. This is an appropriate and good use of fund balance to reduce costs for our taxpayers. Next, we have a resolution to approve our tax receiver and deputy tax receiver to attend the 2016 New York State Association of Tax Receivers and Collectors Conference in Lake Placid from June 12th through the 15th. We are happy to report we finally had an interested party in our canvassing for a new member of the Board of Assessment Review, just in time for grievance day on June 21st. The following resolution would appoint Joseph Campanella to our BAR for a term of 5 years. Thank you to this community member for stepping up to serve as a volunteer on this board, and we will discuss that further later, as I know that some of our board members have some comments. The final resolution is related to our joint work session discussion for this evening. We plan to adjourn back into our regular session from our work session if we are all in agreement to adopt the final resolution about a shared, we'll talk about that later. I'm not even going to talk about it now. Since we have a packed agenda, I have just a few quick announcements to share about some upcoming events in our community. There are still 3 days left to support the Ossining High School Interact Club and help them to fundraise for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. If you are up for a quick bite to eat following our meeting tonight, Pine and Oak Restaurant on Main Street will be donating 15% of all sales made before 10 p.m. to the Interact Club. The Landmark Diner will be doing the same between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. tomorrow, May 25th, and Antipasti di Napoli on Studio Hill Road will round out the week on Thursday evening, May 26th, donating 15% of all sales made between 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. Please take this opportunity to dine around at some of Austin's greatest culinary treasures, all while supporting our students in their work to raise money for cancer research. Mind, Body, Spirit Austin continues this Saturday, where David Garcia of Gem Fitness will be teaching a class at 11 a.m. in our beautiful Nelson Park. Come learn about proper warm-up and cool-down techniques and get in a great outdoor workout to start your weekend. As this is Memorial Day weekend, I want to remind everyone to celebrate the veterans among us and honor those who have passed. The Ossining Historic Cemetery Conservancy will be hosting a veterans gravestone cleaning at Dale Cemetery on Saturday, May 28th between 9 a.m. and noon. No experience is necessary and all volunteers will be trained. And of course, our Memorial Day Parade will take place on Monday with step off at 9:30 a.m. on Monday, May 30th from Croton Avenue and Callum. And it will end at Nelson Park, where the Memorial Day ceremony will commence. Please join us for this annual tribute to those who serve and have served, so that we may all enjoy our families, our friends, and our freedoms. And now, I would like to ask if any of my other board colleagues have any other announcements. I did have one other one. I don't know if Councilwoman Dettori, if you're going to announce it. Okay. I just wanted to mention that our own Councilwoman Dettori, who is also Executive Director of IFCA, will be speaking this Thursday night at Ossining Elks Lodge, which is formerly Brasserie Suisse, at 118 Croton Avenue, to talk about housing for today's adult singles hiding in plain sight. I don't know if you want to talk any more about that or if that's enough to get your interest, but please do join the Lions Club that on Thursday evening, this Thursday, May 26th. At, did I say what time? I don't think I said what time. 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
Okay. Are there any other announcements?
No, we can keep it.
Okay. All right. Madam Clerk.
We'll move on to liaison reports.
Hi. So I am on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and I have been going to the meetings there once a month on the second Monday, and we have been discussing our various parks and some of the needs that we have. There have been some discussions specifically to Ryder Park, and I believe that they are, I'm liaison to that, so I'm not on the actual advisory board, just to make that clear. As liaison, I listen to the information that they discuss, and one of the things I think they're going to advise to our board is the tennis courts in Ryder Park. The fact that one of the sets is obviously disintegrating, and the question is, what should we do with that? And I think they have some suggestions for that. Also, I think, in that comes a conversation about if we maybe don't keep those because they keep disintegrating, but keep the first set, which is still in okay shape and may be able to be restored in some way. There's water over there, so that's always a conversation. There are some other conversations that have come up also with respect to some of the sports teams and how they can work on going on with their games, even though it's a Sunday or if it's rained at night, how we continue to have those. So that's some of the stuff we've talked about, or that they've discussed, and I'm sure we're going to get some reports from them to us about things we may need to decide. Some exciting things about the village and the rec center too, what they're doing over there. So I think that's it for now.
No.
Yeah, that would be easy, wouldn't it?
I'm reporting on IFCA, where I'm the executive director. IFCA held its annual meeting, its 48th annual meeting. Last Thursday, we honored Thomasina Lately Brown, who was awarded with the August Gold Award for outstanding community service, and Jean Glassman, who was awarded the Susan Brewster Eisenman Award for outstanding service in the community. Both exemplary people who have done a lot in the Ossining community and beyond to improve lives for all of us. And the meeting was a big success. We had our elected officials there, and it was a lovely evening, and that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Okay, I'm liaison to the Ossining Fire Department, which thankfully did not rain on the parade. We had an amazing parade, and they looked amazing as always. I think there were 40-something companies that marched with them, and that was a great day. Also, the Ossining Boat Canoe Club, I'm also liaison to that, and we had our commissioning day, 101st commissioning day, and we were also very thankful it didn't rain. So it was a nice weekend and enjoyed by many.
And we'll move on to public comments on agenda items. Is there anyone to address any of the agenda items? Not seeing any, we'll go into the adoption of our resolutions. Resolved, the town board of the town of Ossining hereby approves the May 10th, 2016 minutes of the regular meeting as presented.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Couple minutes? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Yes. I was not at that. Abstention. Thank you.
Resolved that the town board of the town of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated May 24th, 2016 in the amount of $110,649.71.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
Resolved, the town board of the town of Ossining hereby authorizes the supervisor to sign a proposal to provide professional engineering services with Charles A. Manganaro Engineers, Hawthorne, New York, dated May 12, 2016, for design and construction management services for relocation of an existing 8-inch diameter sewer main and installation of a new sanitary manholes within the town sewer distribution system located at the intersection of Croton Dam Road, Route 134, and Kitchewan State Road for an amount not to exceed $45,340.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, now I'd like to turn it over to our water superintendent, Andy Teese from the village, to just, even though Andy doesn't really supervise our sewer lines, he's been intrinsically involved in this conversation with New York State DOT. And so thank you very much for talking about this a little bit, just so everybody has an understanding of what Manganaro is going to be doing and how it ties in with what we're doing in the village, or we all are, as we'll get into that later.
Okay. Thank you, Supervisor and town board members. What you have before you is a proposal from Manganaro Engineering. They are to design and get health department approval for the replacement of a sewer main at the address we talked about, Croton Dam Road and 134 Kitchewan State Road. The town years ago embarked on a project where they did away with the Lakeville pump station. And that was a sewer lift station that was at that intersection down the street just a little bit. And during that project, which was very successful, the town encompassed camera and baseline information, which they had good information of what the sewer lines looked like in that particular area. And then during the last few months, the state went out and started this project. Now, this project was started from the state about 7 or 8 years ago. They bid it, it was given to not to a local contractor, a contractor from upstate, and they backed out. So the project stayed dormant for about 7 years, and it's restarting again. And there's a lot of conflict out there as far as utilities, meaning there's water crossing over gas lines, and then you have sewer lines over the top of that. And everything needs to be readjusted. So on the town side, the town is looking to sign this agreement so that it's designed and it's approved by the health department, and there's construction management services in the field. All the infrastructure will be paid for by the state. The state will take care of that end, which on the sewer side is about $150,000. On the water side, it's about an estimated $125,000. The design for the water changes. The village already signed this contract with Manganaro on the water side, because the village provides the water to the town. And it's being designed as we speak. Manganaro wants to move forward with this so we can get concurrently both projects designed, approved, and get it into this construction season. I think it's the right thing to do. If everybody remembers back about 5 years ago, I had an issue of boil notice for 7,000 people because we were not able to isolate the water system when we had that major blowout by Route 9A. What this will allow us to do with this valving modification is to isolate smaller areas so that we don't have to go through that unless it's someplace else. So it's the right decision as long as the board's on board with it.
So we're going to benefit from an improvement that we're not actually going to have to build, but we're going to do the design work. Are there any questions from the board?
No, I think doing it together is a great, getting it all done together in one charge, one project.
Does anybody hear, can everybody hear that? Okay, no, I'm going to say that. I'm sorry. It's okay, thank you. Just want to say that one more time.
I think having one design process, one opening of the road and messing up traffic and taking care of all the issues at once is a good idea.
And the good news is, I mean, it's good and bad news, but the good news is that the state has a short time frame which they have to achieve this by, and I think that it has to be by October. So that's good news as long as we can keep up with what, as long as we can keep up with our part of the bargain, and we're able to get the county health department to approve it, then we can move forward with this. And I think that's going to be good news for everybody because improving the culvert there improves the drainage for everybody, and then we're going to have better sewer, better water, and all the way around it's going to be an improvement. So.
And the important part is the state helps pay for it.
Exactly.
Yes, that's the important part.
So if there aren't any other questions or comments about that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Resolved, the town board of the town of Ossining hereby approves Carmelo Sacconi of Mount Vernon of Mount Kisco to the seasonal position of labor at Dale Cemetery at an hourly rate of $12 effective May 25th, 2016.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Resolved, the town board of the town of Ossining, location code 342, hereby establishes the following as standard work days for its employees and will report days worked to the New York State and local employees retirement system based on the timekeeping system or the record of activities maintained and submitted by these members to the clerk of this body.
Have a motion? Or are you going to read through everything or no?
No, I don't.
I'll refer to the, okay. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Resolved, the town of Ossining, location code 342, hereby establishes the following standard work days for these titles and report officials to the New York State and local retirement system based on their record of activities. I'll just read through the names rather than all the other in deference to the time. Supervisor, council member Liz Feldman, council member Karen DeTore, town justice Mark Reisman, town justice Michael Tawil, town justice Nancy Quinn-Kova, highway superintendent Michael G. O'Connor, town clerk Mary Ann Roberts, and then the confidential secretary to the supervisor.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Resolved that the 2016 budget be amended to fund taxatory refunds for 2016 from carried over bond reserves and fund balance from each respective fund as described below. And again, it's a total of $153,049.08.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Is there any discussion about this? Okay.
So all of the funds that they're being moved from were already tax certiorari funds meant for that?
Fund balance.
Fund balance. Fund balance
In
and
the
tax
funds that
meant
would
to
have,
pay.
that would have paid for it. They weren't designated funds for tax certiorari. It was fund balance in those individual funds. But that's where the tax certiorari hits. So the amount that's been transferred from each of those funds aligns with the amount that hits each of those funds from the tax refund.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Resolved, the town board of the town of Austin hereby approves the attendance of the tax receiver and deputy tax receiver at the 2016 New York State Association of Tax Receivers and Collectors in Lake Placid, New York, from June 12th through June 15th, 2016. Be it further resolved that the total cost of this conference not exceed $1,270, and any additional expenses for meals and travel shall be reimbursed in accordance with the business expense policy of the town of Austin.
Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Resolved that the town board of the town of Austin hereby appoints Joseph Campanella Austin to the town of Austin Board of Assessment Review to serve a 5-year term set to expire on September 30th, 2020.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Discussion?
I don't know Mr. Campanella, or if I do, I don't realize that I know him, so I have nothing against this fine gentleman, and I'm so happy when community members step up to serve in volunteering roles in the community, so for that I thank him and all who do so. I have some reservations and concerns about specifically the Board of Assessment Review as a board. For anybody who doesn't know, this is a board that reviews people's grievances on their taxes. This is what people refer to as tax day. That's coming up June 21st. So I understand that this is a timely issue, although this just came up now. And, you know, in speaking to some associations and so forth over time, this is one of those boards that, rather than often where you want this, you'll take the smart person rather than the person who has experience, because they'll learn and it's fine, and you don't always need the person with the best college degree, because, you know, it'll be good. This is one of those boards, I think, where the individuals truly need to have a background on, you're talking about grievances that are going to affect the town, the schools, the villages specifically. and each property owner, and whether or not those interest rates and assessments are correct. So I'm just concerned that we should have a board where the individuals really have some market-based real estate assessment-like background, and especially coming up to this year. We have a whole reassessment that's happening, and I think that these people are going to be very busy, and their background and their knowledge is imperative to this process. So I just would, I would like to table this at this time to see, really have a further discussion. I have not spoken to the assessor about it, and that's kind of where I sit right now.
I just want to ask, has the assessor interviewed this individual?
Yes.
Okay, and the assessor is confident in the person's, but the assessor did interview.
He recommended him, yes, he recommended him for the VAR.
Okay.
I can just talk about this. Again, I can't say whether or not, I'm not going to say whether or not, you have to have realty experience. I haven't sat on the Board of Assessment Review. I haven't experienced grievance day personally, so I can't say exactly what would be the best for that position. My instinct would be that, it's good to have community members from all different kinds of backgrounds to participate in boards. I don't disagree with you that it's good, it's helpful, certainly for some of the people to have real estate experience. I'm not sure exactly what everybody's experience is, because I haven't reviewed all of their resumes, because others on the board the other couple of people on the board have been there. But I would also think that you would have guidance from the assessor and the assessor's office as to what kind of what information the town's using to review and to get to the point where the town has issued its assessment, and then you're going to evaluate what the community resident has brought forth, whether it would be appraisals or whatever. And if you need more information, you would be able to get it and you would be able to request it. So I think it's also helpful to have a full VAR by the date. I'm a little concerned about the timing if we do table this resolution, that we're not going to have time to find somebody else, and then we're going to be short one person. So I understand your concerns, and I'd just like to know from the other the other board council members what they would feel would be the best to go forward.
I feel that if the assessor has, excuse me, if he has interviewed him, he knows better than any of one of them what he needs. And, it's kind of like sometimes on the board here, none of us know everything. We sit and we listen, and that's about all we can do on some of it. And I believe that Fernandez, he's done the job well so far. He's done a very good job. So I don't think he'd get somebody on that he has to carry. That wouldn't help him at all. So,
And there is training involved.
Yeah.
Everybody has to be trained to get on board.
Yeah, but I
That's
think
not going to make you a realtor, but realtors do have to go through real estate training.
But I think if he's satisfied or pleased with this person, I haven't met him either, so I don't know what I would ask him if the assessor has already did it.
Councilwoman Collins? My concern would be that, the timing, the implications of having somebody by June 21st. I think it's important that we have somebody. I am confident that the assessor is qualified to select that candidate, so I don't personally have any reservations about moving forward.
All right, I'm looking at his resume, and I see that he has experience in revamping fair hearing processes and assessments for medical services with some of the Social Security stuff and at-home stuff. It's not really the same thing, but it's some experience. I'm gonna have to probably go, I mean, we have no other applicants at this time?
This was put out in December, I believe, and nobody, we had one applicant, and the one applicant ended up, I think, moving or something happened where he wasn't available. He thought he would have the time. It is a 5-year commitment, so, you know, a lot of times people don't want to step up for a 5-year commitment for a volunteer position. Not that you couldn't step down, but, you know, you are making a commitment. So I'm guessing that when, you know, it was initially put out, that we didn't have a lot of takers because it's not really glamorous. He actually presented himself at our town hall meeting on reassessment. He was, I remember he was sitting over here and he was asking him about our, you know, what our computer systems were and how they've been vetted, and presented himself, and the assessor had had a couple conversations with him to answer about some of the questions that he had, and I think that he was impressed with his interest as well as his knowledge and his background knowledge, and thought that that would be something helpful to this board. So.
Okay, now I remember the guy.
I do too.
Okay, I'm
I do.
okay.
I do remember that individual. So, I mean, you know, to Council and Walters and Karen, Mr. Torrey, if the assessor says that this person is somebody that I still will say there is a document out there that says that this board, of all boards, should have people who have the background. However, as to your point, if the assessor believes that it's something that they can work with, and I do agree it should be a full board, then good luck and Godspeed.
Okay. All
No
those in
further
favor?
discussion. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Fantastic. So I would now like to invite our other boards to please join us at the table. If you wouldn't mind coming up, and have to be very frugal with our sharing of the microphones. Okay. Thank you, Mayor Garrity.
You got her own.
on this side of the table.
And our school board, I was hoping that do we have
Yes.
our names for our school board? Okay. And thank you Superintendent Ray Sanchez and our school board for joining us. Hopefully you guys will all have room, and if you don't, squeeze. I can squeeze next. It's not a
May I have a
Okay, I'm
motion
I'm sorry, so go ahead.
to adjourn to a work session?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot to do that one. So we want to adjourn to our work session.
Who's got the camera? I want
Let's wait until everybody's got their names out. Okay.
Everybody
All right, fantastic.
Yeah, really, I want to selfie.
Did you really want to finish off there?
Yes.
We really want one.
Oh, but
This is really
councilman has to sit.
Sit down, we're taking a picture.
You have to go all the way up.
I'll get you all in.
All right.
She said she was going
I got that.
Okay. Yeah,
That's okay, go ahead.
okay. We'll get
All the way
it.
up.
Yeah, go ahead. Taking a picture.
Not far away.
We got it. It's a
Okay,
lot
wait,
of people.
wait, one more, because we didn't have one of our council members sitting down. Okay, thank you. All right. This is truly an historic work session. Bringing together the town, village, the school, and a member of our library board, Maddie Zahatch is here, also representing the library, to embark on a project together. Our focus tonight is really about clarifying why we believe that ours is one water system. We're talking about water tonight. And as such, we want to leverage our collective assets for the greater good. Ossining has long been a leader statewide in crafting innovative ways to consolidate services. Even before there was a tax cap, the town and village shared more than a dozen resources, including our ambulance and fire services, our clerk's office, our finance staff, IT and recreation services, and most recently, our police and engineering services and a consolidated report. In the same spirit of working more collaboratively for our entire community, we are now looking to continue on this path and unify what is, in fact, one water system, so that we charge one uniform water rate throughout the town and village and do not tax our water utilities. This is consistent with all of our other publicly owned properties, such as the schools, the library, et cetera. And now I'm going to turn it over to our mayor for the next, to take over from this.
Thank you, Supervisor Levenberg. So this opportunity came about as a result of conversations happening between the town and the board regarding our water IMA. We've had a water IMA in place for many, many, many years, I believe 31 years, is that correct? Okay, and it's coming up at the end of this year. So we had to really look at this with fresh eyes. And both the village and town are committed to working together to find ways to serve the community as a whole in the best way possible. And sometimes that means unraveling decades, in fact, of structure that may have been put in place. In this case, it's a lot of administrative burden to have the village charge extra half of the rate to town. So for every $1 you spend for water in the village, right now you spend $1.50 in the town. And in turn, the town is one of the taxing entities that taxes the publicly owned water utility property with property taxes. And so in an effort to try and have the financial structure and our capital projects approach to have one unified approach, because it is in actuality one water system. The water does not care if it's crossed a municipal boundary and is now providing a cup of water in the town versus the village. And so we would like for the system to reflect, for the financial system that surrounds it and our approach to capital projects that we need to ensure safe, reliable drinking water for generations to come. We would like that to reflect the actuality of the system, which is one system that serves all of the village and the unincorporated town. And we have with us, we're going to have a long passing of the microphone, so we don't have a microphone on the table, side of the table. Is there anything else that I should touch on before I turn it over to some of our treasurer and our water superintendent and our village engineer and our deputy treasurer? And they're going to give you a little more of the technical background before we open it up for questions. Is there anybody who's got a burning question that you just need to ask and make sure is touched on, or you just want to hear the spiel and then we'll figure out the gaps?
I just also, if anybody from the school board or the library board wants to say anything before we turn it over.
Oh, actually, the library board has considered this already. Maddie, do you want to update folks?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there's a mic midway there.
Okay, yes? Good evening. The Board of Trustees of the Austin Public Library had actually discussed this about 2 weeks ago. We had a chance to review the resolution, and Manager Zambrano actually came to our Board of Trustees meeting last night. He answered a couple of questions that we had, and we did go ahead and pass the resolution unanimously. So we're very excited to work collaboratively on this project with the other taxing entities, and we look forward to having everyone else do likewise.
Hot potato over there. Who wants to start?
I'll start, but it'll be a brief introduction to our financial assessment of everything we're talking about here. As the mayor mentioned, the hydraulics of our system don't know town limits. Tanks and pumping stations and water main transmission piping and distribution piping are placed based on the engineering and the hydraulics, not based on our town and village property borders. So as we worked in the engineering agreements and the town became more familiar with the operation and the village became more familiar with the town system, it really it made good sense. It's something that, you know, you can look at it in two different ways. You can look at it historically and say what would have been saved should these expenses not been passed on or these taxes have not been levied, and what will be taxed and what would be levied with future capital and future tax assessments based on those capital projects. And as you sit there and go back and forth, it made perfect sense to everybody on the village and town side of things to look at it as a single system with a one rate for all the town village residents. For the school district, for your edification, I guess it would be best to tell you that because I don't know your familiarity with actually who oversees the system, but it is the village. There are no town water department employees. but there is water infrastructure in the town. Hence the IMA, because they're essentially paying that 1.5 times multiplier presently to offset the cost of us having village employees that run the distribution and the potable water treatment plant in Crotonville. But with some significant capital endeavors that we look to undertake, particularly with the new potable water filtration system in Crotonville, which is in the town, and the potential tax burden that could be levied there with the new projected assessment, we felt that dropping it down to an equal rate for all residents would be a good decision based on future potential tax implications. That was the big push for the village, and obviously the big push for the town was to get rid of the 1.5 times multiplier for their residents, because they're going to have, their residents will realize a significant savings right off the bat before we even get to debt service. But I'm not going to get into too much detail there other than turn it over to Tom now, because he's going to give you some specifics so you can go back to all your respective boards, because you're going to have to be able to tell your respective constituents where the money will come from, because we don't plan on having any immediate savings or attrition or anything within the water department. So the expense is still going to be the same. So the money's going to have to come from somewhere, and that's what Tom's going to detail for you right now.
Thank you, and good evening. As Owen mentioned, we still need to generate the same amount of revenues. And in fact, we'll need to generate more revenues because we're about to undergo a significant capital project for the new water filtration plant. And so looking at the impact of higher tax bill in the future versus the drop in the revenues that are generated by the town-side residents. I've been working on different rate models, trying to figure out how this is going to work, because the bottom line is we still need to generate, at least in the immediate future, the same amount of revenues. And so right now, the residents in the town outside area of the village consume about 21% of the water, but they generate about 28% of our revenues in dollars. And so the plan would be if we're able to save on not having to pay any property taxes starting in 2017, except for the fact that we're going to be required to still pay the county sewer district property taxes. And possibly we'll need to continue to pay some property tax outside the town, in the town of Newcastle, where our reservoir it extends and the watershed it extends. But I've been trying to figure out how to keep a balanced budget without the water rates going through the roof if all of a sudden in 1 year we were to change the rate model from the town outside residents paying 150% of what a village resident pays for the same amount of water to both paying the same. And so my plan would be to drop the water rates for the town outside residents to be equal to what the rate would be for village residents, and then to increase it from there. And in order to make up the shortfall, which, right now that extra 50% generates about $90,000 or $900,000 in revenues for the village. By looking at normal water rate increases, I think that the amount that we would probably need to finance the budget would be about $700,000 in 2017. And I think our plan would be to utilize some of our accumulated fund balance in the water fund, which we have been building up in order to pay for some of these capital improvements, use that to help subsidize the water rates in 2017. And that's going to have to continue for a couple of years until the point where we don't have to subsidize the water rates anymore. But I think that was an important goal of the village not to have exorbitantly high water rates to make up for the shortfall in revenues.
So to clarify all that, there will not be an immediate 2017 large water rate hike for anyone in the town or the village. It would come, the subsidy would come, at least for that year, and maybe 2018, from fund balance in the water fund. Is that what you heard?
I'm not going to say there's not going to be any increase next
I
year.
said, I said large, like I understand
I
it's
guess
normal.
we need to clarify large. Back in 2009.
You don't want me to clarify?
No, I'll try to clarify this. Back in 2009, we actually had to implement a 29% water and sewer rate increase just to financially save the water and sewer funds. We've been able to overcome that to the point of where we now have a good fund balance reserve. And lately, we've been looking at 2 to 4 to 5. This year we had a 5.5% water rate increase. My goal was to, in looking at the finances for the next few years, and especially considering we're undergoing significant capital improvements that require issuance of serial bonds and adding more debt service to the budget, was to not go over 10% on the water rate increase. But the increase isn't really due to the equalization of the water rates in the town and the village. Really, it's to pay for the additional debt service, but part of it is to help subsidize the rates for a few years. So, I would say I certainly don't want to see anything more than the 10% increase. I certainly don't even want to see an 8% water rate increase. But, it's really all about accumulating or paying for the debt service costs of these capital improvements.
And again, more for the benefit of the superintendent and his board, because the town's a little more intimate with the village's future capital endeavors. The main projects we're going to do really are twofold. One for long-term sustainable water quality and the need that we need to provide based on the comp plan projection and development. And two, to pull us off as much as we can from the dependency of New York City water to the Old Croton Aqueduct. We want to make maximum use of our reservoir and treat that water to the highest quality and most efficiently, and the most efficient way that we can. So it's really capital expenditure for long-term operating budget savings and to update to today's technology. So that's really the premise for this debt service that Tom is referring to.
I think we've given I think everybody's gotten a pretty good overview. In a moment, I'm going to turn it over to our school board and superintendent to ask questions. I'm sure you have some. And I want to say, again, thank you very much for coming here with us. You are the largest taxing entity in the community, and your participation and your willingness to consider this is really appreciated. Thanks so much.
So good evening, everyone. Actually, I'm also pleased that we have the opportunity to be here at the table together and talk about a common concern and problem solve. I just have two requests, if possible. Well, first of all, what the timeline for the Board of Education to make a decision is yesterday?
Well, actually, Lori Lee, do you want to speak to this? Sure. This is more of a legal issue, so I don't want to have to be corrected. Yeah, give that one to Ray.
Thank you.
There we go.
Our research with the assessor's office indicated that the decision should be reached before the 1st of June because the taxable status date thereafter for the following assessment year will need to be set. So we're gearing up for a June 1st decision.
Okay. Just from the sequence that we have right now is that we obviously have 3 board members here. We have to report back to our board, our Our next board meeting is June the 15th. We can certainly talk about options, but that's our next scheduled board meeting. So I just want to share that from a logistical perspective. 2 questions that have been asked. We have some board members that have requested a copy or a reference to the specific law or regulations that allow for designating the proposed properties as tax exempt. That's one. And the other is a list of all village and town properties, perhaps a brief description, current tax status, and tax bill if taxable today. The 2 requests that were raised.
Okay, the actual parcels on which the Ossining School District has an assessment were listed in your letter, and I see Mr. Kress has it in front of him. So the section of specifically of New York State real property law that permits this, it's a discretionary decision. That's why we're making the request formally. Is section 406 sub 3 of the New York State real property law. That is also referenced in the letter that I had sent. And the properties consist of the reservoir and the buffer land, the filtration plant. There are 2 parcels on which portions of the filtration plant are located, a pumping station, and also the properties on which the water storage tanks are located. They're all improved or are specifically adjacent and buffering to the reservoir themselves. So those are the properties in question. They're all included in the water district. Right now, they're undergoing a reassessment, as all of the parcels are. But their classifications today are residential vacant land, community service, they're all over. But at the end of the day, they're all going to be qualified as utilities. We did meet with Tyler Technology, and we were able to correct their classifications across the board. There's no question of that. And we can also speak to, with Thomas Warren's assistance, the ramifications of the taxable exemptions we're seeking, the ramifications to all the other properties. So just so we're clear, and for the public and for the school board, we're not saying that you need to carve this money out of your budget. It simply is reallocated to the other parcels. So there was some concern. I know that the word on the street sometimes takes on a life of its own, but just to reassure everyone, and I think Thomas has actually done some calculations so you can understand what the ramifications would be on the average school tax bill.
I guess, and some of the boards, I think, have been given a copy of this calculation where we actually took the amounts that we're paying on our property tax bills, and we actually calculated it out to what the impact would be on the average residential taxpayer in both the village and the town outside of the village area. And we even did a calculation for the Radcliffe schools as well. But the way we calculated it is that for the average village taxpayer, they would actually pay an additional $12.94 on their village, or I'm sorry, on their town and county and school district tax bill, which is equivalent of 1/10 of 1%. And for residents outside the village, it's $35.51, which is less than a quarter of 1% additional tax. But as Laura Lee had explained, it's mostly just taking the entire tax amount, which is probably about $200,000, and allocating it amongst the entire tax roll. And it's not, asking for like a refund or something out of your budget. It's just reallocating the amount of the tax to everybody else. So it's, it's a calculated amount, but it's a relatively small amount and a very small percentage on the average tax bill.
So we're changing the per thousand tax rate for everybody. That's what it comes down to. So I haven't found the average house when it comes to a tax bill that I would like to see the house that gets the $12.94 increase. It's just too broad to use that.
It's a number we've used in the school board, the average increase. People in the town and village have a healthy skepticism about what the average increase is, so that one's a little tough. We had one paper copy of that spreadsheet. I think we're going to need to have a copy for the entire board, before the entire board. Right, please do, so that we can understand that better. Does this assume that the taxes are as of today before any capital improvements are done? Or does this include some numbers related to the capital improvements?
These are on our current tax bills, and I think part of the idea was to remove these amounts from the tax roll now before the village undergoes the significant capital improvements, which will take, until, I don't know, 2018 or 2020. It's going to take 6 years before these start appearing on the tax roll as increases, given the added cost of the capital improvements. So this is based on current budget and current taxes that we're paying.
It also looks like this spreadsheet is based on they're talking about the additional tax on a $16,988 average village assessment. So this is with the old assessment system.
That is correct.
That's all we have.
That's all we have.
You don't have the Tyler, you don't have the new assessment?
We have estimates. Of course, we went and challenged them, and there were some minor changes they had to make. So we haven't been able to use them as hard and fast numbers, as no one else in the village has been able to do that. So the assessor suggested that our documentation for this request should be based on the actual tax roll as it stands today. We have been notified by Taylor that our taxes are going to go up about 20% in the next taxable year after the Tyler assessments come.
Taxes or tax assessment?
The assessment, yeah. The assessment will go up 20%.
Of the water property?
All the water properties, yeah. Total. And they explained that there would be no change in the method of assessment, but in other words, the land is not currently taxed at full value because its tax is tangential to the facilities that exist, but it's based on cost basis. So there have been some improvements and some borrowing based upon some improvements to the dam spillways, which was ordered by the state of New York. So that increase in improvements is already included in this.
And just to clarify, so the assessment is going up 20%. That does not mean that the taxes go up 20% because you have to look at the whole pie and see what the shift will be when you have an overall increase in values and in assessed property value for the entire town. So that's again that would ultimately you look at what the tax rate is, and that's what I think Trustee Kress was mentioning before.
I think part of the thought process is that if there's a knowledge that the assessment for those properties will go up, and they will, because the facility is going to be bigger, badder, more beautiful, I think is what that team over there would think. The savings to the average property owner in the village for not having to pay that tax is going to be real. Whatever that number is, it will be real. So the potential of spread of increase to the taxpayer from the school perspective, I actually would think the numbers would be far less. than it will be in 6 or 7 years when that water facility is built. So, you know, back to town residents get to not pay 1.5 and be part of a full water system, which we are already part of, and have a full plan and a full capital plan. And water is a very big discussion these days. And I think we have the best. I know we have the best, but the best needs to be worked on to keep it the best. And so there's that. And to the village's point, not having to pay whatever the increase of taxes is as that time goes by and that facility is built is going to be a decent savings. And I have full confidence that should this all go forward the way we hope it does, that the gentlemen who are in charge of the water system at this time will find more ways to save more money by looking in other places. So, and I'm so excited about this table. I just can't get over it. Just all of these boards together.
One way of looking at it is, if we're going to be one big water entity, one part of us shouldn't tax another part of us, we're just taxing ourselves. The school board might also want to consider that AMD is in the town outside, and your water bills will go down significantly in that you won't be charged 1.5 times the rate for that location. So that'll be a savings for the school also. As well as all the town outside residents, the school would be getting charged that rate also. So that'll be another way that it will even out.
I'd really like to hear from the school board members.
So basically, what it seems is that logistically speaking, we have our next meeting June 15th, but it looks like your target date is June 1st. And then just to summarize, to make sure I'm hearing everything correctly, and I think I am, because it has been stressed that these numbers that are on this spreadsheet are based on the current tax rolls as they are without the Tyler reassessment numbers. So we're really not sure where those numbers will lie. So we can't say for sure. Do we know if there are going to be any surprises that come out? Are these numbers possibly going to be higher than maybe the 20%? I think that someone mentioned, or do we have like a real feel for that?
Actually, we have received revow notices from the town with the new assessment numbers. Our problem is not knowing what the entire pie is in terms of, you know, right now we can calculate what the full value assessments are for the town, but we don't know what the full value is going to be under the revow. So we really can't calculate. And they also gave us projected taxes, but it's a consolidated number. I really can't break it apart between the different components. And as I said, you know, we still have to pay the county sewer district tax.
Is it less or more though than was the original? Did it go down?
The total.
The new notices that you received, were they lower or higher or the same as the notices that you had received?
I believe that they were about at least 20% higher than the.
No. The notices that you just said you just received, which was the new value? Is that what you said? You received the new value since you met with Tyler?
No.
No.
Oh, I thought you were saying.
Within Tyler.
Okay, all right. So those notices are supposed to be going out around June 1st, which is right after the determination, so that you can see what the whole pie is, and everybody would sort of have a sense. I think that there is some flexibility, and we can clarify with the assessor, but I do believe that there is some flexibility in terms of time, because there is the grievance process that still would set, you know, would continue the process of changing everybody's, would shift everybody's values a little bit. So I think that there may be some wiggle room in terms of your date and your June 15th next meeting date. If we can get back to you about that, but I'm pretty sure that, you know, that would be the case. Otherwise, my other question would be, is there an opportunity for you to set a special meeting if need be to discuss this and
Yeah,
maybe
I would
act
like
on
to
it?
get Fernando directly communicating with the school district so he can give them his advice because, you know, he's mandated by his rules. So that would be a good connection to me directly.
You know, we won't be able to have a meeting this week. There's other things on the district calendar. I don't quite see how it happens. Unless we know May, what's Thursday?
May 26th, but we don't have enough time to, we don't have time to even notify the public.
Notify the public?
I think it's tight.
We give a week's notice?
48 hours?
Yeah, and we're talking about the taxable status date, which is different than the challenges in the grievance process. So I do really hope to clarify specifically with Fernando, and we can make that communication clear.
One more question I know. So the numbers that we see on the sheet here, the pro forma, I guess, or estimated numbers, when will these affect the tax rolls? And we're looking to pass resolutions for each of the taxing entities on or by June 1st, let's say. And so then when do these, I guess, slight increases or these changes, when would we expect them to take effect? I know there's been a lot of talk about, so this is 2017?
January 2017 is when the first, the village taxes go up first, and those would be the first ones that would be impacted, but it would affect the 2017 taxes.
Right, and this would affect the school district taxes for 2017-18.
Okay, so it seems that our next steps would be to discuss among the other board members. We would have to have a public meeting, which I don't think we can do by the 1st. And then if all goes well in that meeting, we would draft a resolution and pass it. As far as that goes, but I don't think we're going to get a meeting on for June 1st.
So again, in summary, I mean, I think we'll go back, we'll talk to, and try to share all the information. I just want and I apologize, you know, some of this information was provided to me before by Victoria Dean, and I apologize to the board because I'm taking it forward, and particularly this worksheet. But if you have a copy of a draft resolution, just so we have it in hand, we'll look to talk to the board about possible dates. We can move it up, we'll tell you. We'll make an effort and have a conversation with the rest of the board. Scheduling 7 individuals is difficult, such crazy schedules to begin with. And we'll try to provide as much of this information to them, and we can have a meeting before the 15th, and hopefully we'll have a constructive dialogue that can lead to a decision.
I don't trust myself to explain this totally to the other board members, and they're going to have lots of questions. I think somebody who really understands this, top to bottom, would have to attend that meeting and help answer some of those questions. And an electronic version of this sheet.
That was actually the comment I was going to make, is that whatever the date is, whether it's the 15th or it can be sometime sooner, I'm sure that the village would make every effort to have somebody there to help answer questions and flesh it out, because I'm sure that the rest of the board will have more questions.
And if we're going to make a decision
It's a big
at
decision.
the meeting.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll come back with more questions, and we'll be talking about this until September.
Did you want to say something? Because I think a couple of board
No,
members.
as soon as we have a date, we'll coordinate
Okay.
getting people there.
So someone will be there, we just need a date. And we'll talk to Fernando tomorrow and get some clarification on the June 1st and how much flexibility there is to open up. So we'll talk to Fernando tomorrow and get some understanding about how firm the June 1st is, or what flexibility there might be if a decision's not able to be reached by June 1st. So I think there were, Ray, you wanted to say something?
No, I just think that we'll go back and work as quickly as we can to find a date.
Thank you.
From all board members, and we'll share what we can and try to interpret the best so that we provide our interpretation of what was provided to us. But I agree, I think having an expert there at the meeting would really be very, very helpful.
Who's the point person for these guys? Sorry. We probably need just to assign a point person so that these emails, so we should just figure, no, not on your side, on our side. Who's the,
Even the three of
is
us
it the
have been
three of you?
communicating,
Okay.
with superintendent, mayor, supervisor, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we want to make sure that you're provided with all the details that you need. This is something that we've, the town and the village, we've looked into this in great detail, and we certainly want the school board to get the benefit of all that deep dive that we've done to look at this thing. I think the thing that I wanted to just say is the whole notion of the assessment is, ultimately that's a cost to the water system that would be passed on to everybody, whoever uses the system. And the exchange here is that we treat all the users the same way. And we're hoping that through the broad spreading of that amount of money that won't be taken into the school budget can be spread out amongst all the other taxpayers, but that ultimately long term will have great water at a good price. And I also wanted to say that what was mentioned before is that the current team that's running the water plant has done some really amazing work to cut costs. Very recently, we were able to, we got a grant from the New York City water system for $390,000 because we did the investigation to find leaks in the system. And that's something that, there's only more of that to come. And I think that at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we have a great water system, that we were able to charge a fair price, and that everybody benefits. So thanks very much.
Any final questions or comments from our friends from the school who are welcome to stay with us for the continuing conversation, but not obligated
I
to?
just want to make sure that we're not with.
Yes,
Board also. Does anybody else want to comment? And, I do think also that our Councilwoman Feldman also brought up a good point about the savings that we might see for the AMD as well as the maintenance buildings. So I think it would be helpful for maybe the school district to take a look at what those figures are. That could also be kind of rolled into what the savings would be. And I think that's very helpful. So I just wanted to, again, thank you. It's fantastic seeing you all here again at the board table. I really enjoyed it, and you're obviously welcome to stay for the next part of our discussion, which is also going to be about sharing services, looking for money under trees, as in looking for grant money, and finding ways to be more efficient. So if you have any desire, you are welcome to stay and join us for that conversation, but we also know that you have lots of meetings this week, so you're welcome to leave and go home to your families, and we'll follow up tomorrow. I did get a little message from our assessor that he thinks there may be some wiggle room, and he will let us know first thing in the morning tomorrow, so we'll be back in touch with you about that tomorrow morning, okay?
If they leave, all costs go on to the school.
All costs.
Now they're going to say.
Thank you for allowing us to be here, and as always, we appreciate the opportunity to collaborate with all the entities here, and I know that we all have the same thing in mind, is what's best for our community. So look forward to engaging in a conversation with the rest of the board, and we'll let you know as soon as possible.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so as our school board trustees and superintendent are leaving, and also congratulations on all the gazillions of awards that all of our students have won this year, from Intel to basketball to arts awards, as usual, the 3As loom large in the school district, athletics, the arts, and academics. So thanks again for all of that. And so we're losing our mayor. She's skipping out for a second, and hopefully she will be joining us again. So let me just, anybody have a good joke? Thank you. Thanks. Okay. All right. So again, thank you all for all the work that went into putting this analysis together, and thanks so much to the school and the library boards for attending this meeting and participating in the process with us. I know I look forward, and I'm sure I can say the same for the village, to continuing this discussion and working together to achieve our collective community goals. Next up, we will be hearing from Ben Seiden, the Vice President of the LaBerge Group. As everyone is aware, New York State has put a great pressure on municipalities to stay within the tax cap while maintaining our capital assets and providing a high level of service to our constituents. We have made great strides in Ossining to share services whenever possible, which I discussed a little bit before, but even with planning and foresight, we continue to face an uphill battle to fund staffing, services, and projects, all within the tax cap. New York State has offered incentives to consolidate services, and the LaBerge Group has been enormously successful at securing grant funding to achieve this goal, specifically related to getting grant dollars for shared service studies and comprehensive planning. We are hoping to reopen the conversation about how best to perform government services and provide government services in the town of Ossining and within the villages of Ossining and Briarcliff, while remaining conscious of the need to maintain our services and our identities while keeping our taxes low as possible. With that in mind, we look forward to hearing what LaBerge has to offer and sharing that with the community. Do you have anything to add to that, or should I turn over to Ben?
I'll just be super brief because Supervisor Levenberg really gave us a good overview, and thank you Supervisor Levenberg and the town board for welcoming us here and introducing us to this opportunity to potentially work with the LaBerge Group. What we're discussing today is a consideration of if we wanted to apply for grants that might allow us to explore possibilities to really expand the level, the depth of sharing of services for the collective, the benefit of the whole community. And I think that our conversation we just had is an excellent example of the collaborative approach that the town and the village are looking to have together. In that case, it expands to other taxing entities. In this case, it's really the town and the villages, because you've been in communication with Briarcliff as well. And this is not business as usual. This is not, we're trying to unravel some of the historic tit for tat that has created barriers to us being able to work together as much as we possibly can and created administrative burden sometimes. So we welcome the opportunity to explore what we can do even better. And sitting at this table right here, we have a lot of great examples of people who are shared services, from Mary Ann Roberts to the other side with our finance and our engineering IMAs. We do a pretty great job already of making the most of some of our stellar employees, sharing between town and village needs. So with that, thank you. Good.
Do we need to flip around? I think we may have to flip around and shift so that the camera can see the...
Well, we're not giving a presentation.
Oh, you're not giving a
PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. I thought you were giving a presentation.
No.
Okay.
This is a continuation of our discussion a few weeks ago.
Is your microphone on?
Yeah, it is.
You have to kind of hold it close.
Okay.
Close to your mouth.
You might want to join us up here and sit and have a table,
Sure.
sit at the table so that the camera...
And with me this evening is Nicole Allen. She's our Planning Services Manager. First, I want to thank you for letting us know that we were sitting outside the village and town hall for about a half hour, and we met some of your great business owners and residents who were coming to talk about your arts and their art committee. And he came by and he said, meeting is down the block. So I thank you all for having us here. And first and foremost, it's very impressive to see just all of you together on one board. Not only we came in here with the library board, the school board, the village board, the town board, what you are doing doesn't even matter yet about any kind of discussions on future shared services. It's showing us as consultants and also all communities across the state what governments can do when they work together across municipal boundaries. They don't look at whether you're a town or a village. They look at we're all neighbors working together for a better community. And why we're here today is we met with the supervisor and the mayor and also the village manager in Briarcliff a few weeks ago to discuss where New York State seems to be going in the future. For the last 5 years, we've heard a lot about consolidation, dissolution, sharing services, all in the name of government efficiency. And Nicole and I have been touring the state, talking to communities more about something called Government Do-Over Day. We've heard about the thousands of local government entities. We look at special districts and water districts and school districts and library districts and lighting districts and sewer, and I mentioned sewer districts and park districts. And we go backwards and say that if we had one shot, one day, and we said stop, and we wanted to re-engineer, re-envision, reorganize, how would we do that? If we took all of our services, all of our people, all of our equipment, and threw it on a giant whiteboard and moved them all around, is this the same government that we would have tomorrow? And the answer unequivocally across every part of the state is no. From police services to ambulance services to town boards, this is not the way most governments in our nation work. When people come to New York, they are bewildered. You have a village in a town, and you pay taxes to both, and both do similar things, and they scratch their heads and go, why? So we talk about government do-over day in the understanding that we all have neighbors and we have pants, and we have two pockets in those pants. Whether you take the money on the left side and put it on the table, or the right side of the table, they're still your pants. So we have to figure out which way we can work together to make those pants a little bit better for us all to fit into. So when we talk about government reorganization, we come to you and saying, when you move forward, when you look at your government do-over day, how would that look? So we spoke to you a few weeks ago about a couple of grant opportunities. The governor has both the local government efficiency program, and they have the municipal restructuring fund, and they have monthly applications. So we start talking about what happens through the CFA. You all know what the CFA is, the Consolidated Funding Application, the once a year. Well, prior to Governor Cuomo, we had grants due almost monthly. We may have some grants in January and different grants in February, from Community Development Block Grant to State Archives grants to housing grants to parks to waterfront grants to transportation grants monthly. And in the last 5 years, we've created a situation in New York State where you have one big deadline, one opportunity to compete for funding for all your community needs. And it's called the Consolidated Funding Application. Governor Cuomo created 10 regional councils. Each regional council boundaries mirrors that of the Empire State Development regions. And you compete as a region for local issues against other regions in our state. And in doing so, you have one time to put in applications. This year, the round 5, will be due July 29th. So we approached the town and the village, look at different needs you have in your communities. And one need that came up was a need to consider looking at how we do in both your communities, how we provide services to our residents. Now, you have already told us you have anywhere between 15 and 20 IMAs. You work together on almost every part of what you do. And you're an example and a model of how villages and towns can do that. But within that, there are always other opportunities. So the governor has this program that allows you to apply for funding to look detailed into how you provide services, every service that you provide, and look at different ways to reimagine, reinvent, reorganize your governance. And that's really what the program is for. Now, you have a couple options. You can do a grant due July 29th for a shared services study, but I think you're all shared service out, so to speak. You already have a shared service for almost every type of shared service you can possibly have. But there is another way you can go, and that is a discussion on reorganizing the boundaries of your governments. Many communities, specifically in Westchester County, but throughout the state, have a coterminous process where a town village is one being, one entity, and that's one option. There's a variety of different options for consolidation, and those grants don't have to go once a year. There's not a ticking time bomb, so to speak, that you must support or put in an application by July 29th. You can put in a government reorganization grant any month by the first Wednesday of any month. So if you as boards decide that you want to take it upon yourselves to look at reorganizing in any shape or form, and look at all of the different alternates involved in that, you can apply any time in the year for that reorganization. And so that's what we want to bring to you back. We mentioned it originally, and we piqued the interest of the village mayor and the town supervisor and also the village manager in Briarcliff in what would that look like? What kind of grant opportunity is that? How would we work together? And you asked us to come back today and talk once again to both your boards about timing, process, and what goes into that kind of a study, and where you go from
So,
Could you also talk a little bit about, for both of our boards, a little bit about some of the work that you've done in the past and successes that you've had with grants?
Sure, I should back up a second. Has anyone here heard of LaBerge Group before? If you haven't, I haven't done my job very well. So just humor me a second. You're sitting next to me. Yeah. So LaBerge Group is a municipal consulting organization. We are engineers, planners, architects, and grant writers and economic developers. We've been around since 1964. And I started tracking, and back in 1999, the successes that Nicole's department has had and our firm has had. We've secured over $153 million for our clients during that time. We began back in 1964 working on water and wastewater projects and realizing very quickly that there is not that proverbial pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. We looked, it rained, we drove, it wasn't there. So we started realizing that there needs to be funding to implement some of these projects, to put the infrastructure, to allow communities to develop, to meet their needs. And we started a whole division just on grant writing, administration, and management. Over the last 10 years, we've added to that economic development planning and grant writing, added a whole local government efficiency program. We've done over two dozen local government efficiency, dissolution, shared service, consolidation type reports. Locally, we've worked in Tarrytown and Sleepy Hollow, in Dobbs and Hastings on their shared service projects across the river up in Orange County and town of Chester and all over New York, from Chemung County to Albany County to Columbia County, up in Essex County. We go as far north as Canada and down to here in Westchester. And we've heard every community has told us their stories of how they are unique and how they provide their services. And we've heard almost every type of way a government can work. And in doing that, it's given us a broad base of knowledge to bring to all of our communities as to tried and true methods for sharing, for being efficient, and working together on behalf of all their residents. On the grants, in the last few years, we won 11 out of 14 of the CFA applications, and we're batting 100 so far, or 1,000, on the LGE and the CREG, the Citizen Reorganization grants. We have a situation right now where, as you know, down here and everywhere in the state, we are overtaxed. Our taxpayers are crying out for support. At the same time, they also want the most efficient and effective services that they can have in their communities. And that's why the local government program is such a useful tool to communities nowadays. And that's why we want to chat about that.
You just said a couple of words I just want to address before we go any further. There was a study done by CGR in 2011, which many people in the community and certainly the village and town government are familiar with. And at that time, there was on the table 3 considerations: becoming a city, dissolving the village, and becoming coterminous town village. The result of the study was just keep doing what you're doing. Shared services is great. If we're moving forward with this, I think we discussed this in our small group, and I just want to reiterate for everybody in this conversation. A city is a waste of time to explore because New York State's never going to allow it. I mean, if Portchester suddenly miraculously has success, which clearly that is not where they expect to be going, considering what's going on over there, city is off the table. I want to just speak very, very briefly, and then not speak about it ever again. The village is not going to dissolve itself. I realize that this is potentially advantageous in some communities. Ossining is unique among communities for many reasons in New York State, but not least of which is the village represents the majority of the people who live in the town. And the unincorporated part of the town represents the smallest portion of municipal government entity, and the village of Briarcliff is about 40% the size of the village of Ossining, but less than that. So our village is not going to dissolve itself and then all the services that are managed by the village just disappear, and suddenly the town picks up and figures out how to restructure that. So you know that. Some of us sitting at this table know that, but if anybody's watching, when you say things like some municipalities have had success in this manner, I just want to state unequivocally that what we're interested in looking at is how we can expand the sharing of services for the benefit of the community, but that dissolving the village is just not a reasonable path for that. And if anybody on our board is... Pardon?
There's also discussion going coterminous.
Coterminous is a possibility,
Correct.
yes. But that's, as you stated, moving the borders, so that actually it's expanding the village so that it has the same lines as the town.
Well, and there's a challenge in that as well. You have to have a partnership with Briarcliff Manor, and they would have to go coterminous with themselves and create a combination of a village town.
Well, I
So
think
there's
there's a
lot
variety of scenarios of how that could look, and as I stated to our friend from Briarcliff, that we need to enter this with the idea that we may all walk out of it saying the status quo is the very best we can do, or maybe many of the variations of what we would be looking for is to understand what would the path look like to get there, and then what would the financial implications be of any given scenario, so that we can all make an informed decision on what we want to support and recommend.
Correct, and the good thing is that we have not worked with you on this. I don't have a horse in the race, so to speak.
Yes.
Our job as consultants is to work with you to identify what all the options are, vet them with you, and come up with a couple of different paths for you to make that decision which way to go. The beautiful part of the situation is the government from the above, Albany, is giving incentives, if you may, to do coterminous and to do sharing services between the grants, and if you choose to implement any findings from the study, there are future grants, both in implementation, and if you do going further and move forward towards coterminous, you have the Citizen Empowerment Grant, the Craig money that comes every single year in September. Coterminous is allowable part. It's no different in terms of the legislation of a dissolution as coterminous. You still get the 15% of the combined tax levy as a grant every year. So that's just a little bit of a carrot thing to throw out there.
I just think it's a great opportunity to try to be very honest about what our numbers really are, and to think not who's going to win, but how are we all going to win. So, I'm hopeful that by applying for a grant to look again, to take another hard look, and I'm hopeful that we can get cooperation from Village of Briarcliff, and I know that they've had some of their own meetings, and they're considering, if this is something that they would be interested in looking forward to, in looking at, that if we could all work together, really provide real true numbers of real assessments of what our various services are, what our various service costs are, what our ratables are, what needs to go where, what makes sense to go where, and how everybody can come out on top. That would be, certainly from my perspective, how we could all benefit from doing this kind of a study. I also think that there's an opportunity to, and I'm not exactly sure how this fits in, or if it does, to look at economic development and job creation as we look at service delivery. And as we look at, again, I keep saying our collective assets. So, what is it? What do we have? What are our businesses? What kind of housing do we have? Almost like a joint comprehensive plan evaluation. And what are our transportation needs? Where are our hubs? And how can we best service all three? Hopefully, soon to be fewer than three taxing jurisdictions and/or governments, three governmental bodies. I think that eventually that the objective would be to reduce again, we talked about the tit for tat, the administrative burden of shifting monies back and forth, and finding how can we spend less, get more, and still maintain our identities. So again, I think that's critical to everybody here at the table and everybody out in our community who care so much about where they live and who they believe that they are from and how their identity is created by where they live and where they chose to live, where they were born, and where they continue to live.
So what are the parameters of what are the logistics? What are we really talking about here? I mean, you just said a whole lot. We went through, these are the type of grants that you could possibly apply for, and these are the things that they cover. You just talked about economic development, and so I don't know, what is it that you really can do? How much does it really cost? How long does it take? I'd like some specifics. I want to know what we're talking about here.
Sure, I can jump in here. So if we were to talk just about the coterminous process and eliminating the other two altogether, you've done that study, and now it would be refining that study to just look at that one option. through that option, it's a monthly grant, so that would just be through the monthly application, and it would be looking at where those boundaries should go. You mentioned economic development in the hub, so as part of that analysis, you could look at how the tax parcels would fall into those new boundaries, where those boundaries would realistically land, so that there would be a mutual benefit for all the communities or identities that would be created as part of that study. Through that process, then you would take a look at the next step. So how does it happen? Briarcliff would not be included as part of, potentially as one of the options as part of a coterminous. You can't have a coterminous with two villages. It's one of the starting points. So one would either be Briarcliff becomes part of a town, Briarcliff becomes something else, but that has to be assessed in another way at a harder look to understand what happens with that one entity before you can even get to the coterminous point. So this analysis would take a look at kind of all the options for the boundaries. It would take you a good 9 months, a good 10 months to get through this process of just understanding it. It could take you a year to understand those boundaries and those benefits. And then at that point, you would have the ability to say, okay, we're on board with this. This is what our plan is. It would need to be mutually beneficial, so all the communities want to move forward with it. And then once you move towards implementation, that would be another set of next steps as part of that.
When you talk about boundaries and the time period, does that include, that automatically includes the look at the services that exist?
Absolutely. So we would need to look at where those service boundaries are, who would be responsible for providing the continuation of such services, where the school district boundaries will fall into that, where it might make sense from a zip code boundary, where it makes sense to, potentially carve out Briarcliff from the town if they wanted to succeed. So there's a lot of things that would need to be looked at just to understand who provides such services, what makes sense from a reasonable standpoint to include the village and the town boundaries, and then look at all of those services from a taxing standpoint as well.
Thank you for that. I just want to say I find this very intriguing and very exciting, and I think it ultimately creates an all boats rise scenario. As we go forward, it really is incumbent on all of us to explore all options to make sure that we're delivering services and governing as efficiently as possible. And we wouldn't set things up if we were setting them up today the way they're set up, because things were set up a long time ago when things were a lot different. So with the advance of technology, with the way people live today, with a huge range of factors weighing in, it's really, I think, critically important that we exercise any resources that we can to make sure that we're doing everything we need to do to ultimately keep life affordable and improve the quality of life here in Westchester. So thank you.
You know what is interesting? I guess I missed out the classes when I went to architectural school about grant and how do you help municipalities into services, shared services. I think, at least in my school, we didn't have that. So it's very interesting to see that actually it's just like when you go to become a doctor, you specialize in different areas. It's interesting to see that, being an engineer, architect, a surveyor, you actually do a lot more than that and serving the community. It's more like an urban design planning in a different area. That being said, I was part, when I became a trustee in 2012, that study that our mayor mentioned before. It was actually almost at the end of the shared services and what that meant with the village of Briarcliff, the town of Austin, and the village of Austin. And if I remember correctly, the study was mainly based on the town of Austin and the village of Austin, because the village of Briarcliff kind of opted out of the whole study itself. So I guess my questions are, and it goes mainly to the town supervisor and the village mayor, is this another study that the village of Briarcliff is actually gonna work with the with the rest of the municipalities, or is it gonna be something different than was last time? And what is the difference? It's just the conclusion at that time was that the village of Austin and the town of Austin they have a lot of IMAs, and we have all the services that we share and everything else, and every time, every year, we actually, as you saw earlier today, we try to improve the relationship between the town and the village. So what is the difference, or what will be the main difference going forward with a new study, which to me, and I'm not sure if you had the opportunity, because those studies are on our website, maybe take a look at it and actually see, this is going to be different, this is going to be different. What has changed since 2010? They started 12, 11, 12, pretty much. So I'm not sure exactly what the study is going to say.
Well, none of us know exactly what to say, but did you meet with Barclay yet?
Yes.
You did? Okay, so tell us.
I'm not sure if it's public information yet. I don't know if you met with them.
Well, we've had some preliminary discussions with representatives of the village. We do not speak on behalf of the village, but it's my understanding they have much interest in working as partners with both the village of Austin and the town. We're taking a hard look at the governance in all the communities to figure out the most optimal way to provide services to all the residents. And whichever way it may go is something they want to see. They have begun reports in the past, studies have started, studies have stopped. There's history in the processes. But as far as my understanding, they're very interested in being and very willing to be partners in this process as we move forward.
So I'm guessing that the next step would probably be for us to get some feedback, for our boards to get some feedback from Briarcliff Board and identify what it is exactly that they are interested in proceeding with, and hopefully it's going to be similar to what we've discussed tonight. And if that were the case, then the next step would be for us to get together with LaBerge and frame what it is exactly that we are going to study and how we're going to proceed. I think the jumping off point would be, okay, we have the CGR study already. We don't need to go back. We're going to use that as a launching point for, okay, where do we go from here? What did we learn from that? And what more information do we now want to gather? And again, as I mentioned before, to really be honest about the numbers that everybody's providing so that nobody is the winner, right? We all want to be winners. So if we can all go in with that together, that we all want to be winners and provide the correct numbers that underpin an excellent study, we would then get an estimate from LaBerge, or proposal from LaBerge, to figure out how we could apply for grant money to fund a study that would then take us to the next step of hopefully going back to our communities, presenting options, working with the community even to develop the options, our communities to develop the options, and then, again, 9 months down the line, coming back and saying, okay, which way do we want to go?
Correct. And it's a monthly process, so there's you have to get it done in the next 6 weeks to get the application. And it's one that's done in partnership with the Department of State. We're very lucky in that we have very qualified individuals working at the Department of State that want to work directly with you to help figure out and navigate this process. It is a process, and part of what we do is navigate that. Yes, you are absolutely correct. Normally, architects, engineers, they don't learn about shared services. They're designing APs. Engineers have a problem, they design a solution. They identify the alternates, pick the most reasonable one, and go A to B, sometimes to C. The planning part of what we do is working with communities to figure out what you want to be when you grow up and how to get there on urban and regional planning. On government affairs and government operations, government efficiency, it kind of pulls all the skill sets together to look at the entire municipality and figure out how those services are being provided. And look at it fiscally, look at it service provided wise, and look at the public and figure out how to pull it all together in one direction. Because as the supervisor and mayor have all said, we want to build a plan that everyone rises, the entire community wins. We get better services, more efficient services, more effective services at a lower cost.
So, I'm sorry, no, please ask your question.
So I've been on the website, your website, while you've been talking about it. Took me a while, actually, but now that I have it. Here's the thing. A lot of small towns, and you do a lot of stuff, which is fantastic. So I'm really glad that, at least for me, I've had a chance to sort of hear about the kind of work that you do. Can you give me, of all these clients, because of the way you have it set up, can you give me an example of something that is close to what we're talking about, so I could actually look at their process, what the outcomes were? You know, there are lots of costs, right? There is your cost, but there's our cost. Whether they're in the grant or not, all these people that sit around this table will have to take time to meet and do. When they do that, they don't do other things, because you can only do one thing at a time, right?
Sure.
So there are lots of costs involved that eventually we have to take into account and all the projects that we work on. So is there a template on this website
No,
for one client that is similar to this scenario that we can investigate and get a better feel?
I can provide you many clients because every client is different and every process is different. We wrote an article for the Association of Towns, and it is entitled, what was it called? Chemung County. One size does not fit all. The entire process, we've worked in Chemung County, 85,000 people, 14 towns and villages. Albany County, 280,000 people. My town, Town Colony, 85,000 people. Each one of these communities look at shared services differently, from DPW to code enforcement to communities that are dissolving in its entirety in Macedon and Wayne County, in Port Henry up in Essex County, or even smaller communities down in Washington County. It's not the size of the community, it's the process they're going through. Every single one of the communities we worked in, whether Chemung County, which has won statewide awards for what they do for shared services, where the county and the city have merged DPW departments and are now merging their building and maintenance and grounds departments, where the county commissioner of DPW is also the highway superintendent in Big Flats and the village of Horseheads. Each one of them looked at the process the same way you are here. What services do I provide? What are those costs? What are the mechanisms involved? And how can we rearrange, reorganize, and redeploy our resources to best meet the needs of our community? So I can give you Chemung, I can give you Albany County.
Anybody around here?
As I mentioned earlier, we work in Tarrytown and Sleepy Hollow. We also work in Hastings and up in Dobbs Ferry. And in Mount Kisco, we secured $374,000 for Mount Kisco for their police consolidation into the county sheriff, which we won't talk about.
It's a different project.
Right, but what I'm getting at is, government, while it's all the same in one level, that we have elected representatives surveying, providing needs to our residents, each government is different, each analysis is different. But each of them come through the same process to be more effective and more efficient for the services they provide.
So it sounds like our next steps are, have you gotten the link to the CGR report that was done 5 years ago?
Yes, the Department of State actually gave it to us.
Okay, great. So as Supervisor Levenberg acknowledged, that's a good jumping off point and a good foundation for the additional information that we'd be looking for with the basic scope that we've discussed tonight. And I understand that at any given month, the first Wednesday of the month, whatever it was, we can apply for these government reorganization grants. And as Trustee Levin pointed out, any effort like this, though you would be doing a lot of the work, so would some of the folks sitting around this table to get all the information, to process it, to move forward to whatever the next step is for 9 or 12 months to really get a valuable report that we might be able to take action from. So we talked numbers of what some of the grants are. Is grant money going to cover your fees?
What we have to do is identify. What?
It's not.
And ours.
And ours, yes. This
Well, the grant doesn't do 100% of it. There is a match required in the program. We can scope a project to what the cost is that the grant provides. We need to do a lot more work scoping with you. We have to figure out exactly what it is you want to do. There's a molding process involved in this, even before you make the application to the state. We've had initial meetings and discussions, and now we have tonight's meeting and discussions and input from trustees and council members. From there, we can help start whittling down some key points and how this can go forward. And then go back and talk to Briarcliff and both communities here to figure out, is this really where you want to go? And once you have that scope, then we can give you a fee to meet that, one that can met with most of the monies from the state. And what I also can do, because this is the first time many of the trustees and council members are meeting us, we can provide you with our statement of qualifications for shared services with references, project sheets, and what we do.
All right. Well, we're nearing the witching hour, so is there anybody else on either of the boards that wanted to ask any questions of our visitors? or anybody from municipal government, particularly some of you who may have been here 6 years ago and went through this process when it was a wider scope but didn't include Briarcliff? Anybody want to ask questions? No. Okay. Anybody over here?
That's a definitive no.
Mayor, what I can do is I can provide you with copies of the presentations and also the articles that we were asked to provide for the Association of Towns. We've been on the speaking circuit for the last few years just on shared service and government efficiency, and they keep coming back to us to teach and train communities on how to do this. I'll be happy to provide those articles to you guys.
Great. And we appreciate you acknowledging how far along this journey we already are.
You're way ahead of the majority of communities in the state.
Yes. We know and we take great pride in it, and we're looking to continue to be a model municipalities.
And you know, the school, while they're not part of this discussion today, should be part. You know, down in Chemung County, the school district are active participants in many of the communities in sharing services, from salt sheds to using the garages, heavy lifts. Some schools actually use a heavy lift for their buses and share that with towns, and vice versa on Washington.
Sounds like you're broadening our scope, but we would love to reach out to our friends in the schools.
I actually think that that's a great idea, and I also think, you know, one of the things that we had started a brief conversation with Village of Briarcliff about was about jitneys and or trolleys, whatever you want to call about, and talking about how you would have some kind of a transportation, either for weekend or tourism purposes, to service all of the business districts, as well as the transportation hubs, and try to connect up some of the dots, let's just say. And that, you know, could potentially have some ramifications for the school district as well.
It could. What we ask our communities to do is come to all the meetings with an open mind. And sometimes you turn these projects upside down and backwards. There was one community we worked in where the final result was that the recreation departments were not going to be shared amongst the villages, but actually merged into the school district, because the school district had a part-time AD. So why hire an municipal athletic director if you already have one that's only working part-time? Same with the field and maintenance. How can we take 4 people, each do 25% of their job on 4 different aspects, and rearrange, become more efficient, each one have one specialty, and be more effective in the services they provide? And that came out of the school, not just the 2 villages. It's a very unique opportunity you have before you.
Is the recreation thing, is that Tarrytown?
Yeah. I don't think they implemented it, but the school district is the one that actually came up with that.
Okay. Okay, so then are we clear on our next steps?
I think we're clear on the next steps, that we are going to be getting together with LaBerge to figure out what we would need to do to scope out and come up with a proposal, that you would come up with a proposal to present to hopefully the 3 municipalities that would all have an opportunity to weigh in, flesh out the proposal further, and then determine what the costs are and how we would fund it moving forward.
So the supervisor would be 2 meetings.
Yeah, so does this, this would be at least a tri-party agreement with the 3 municipalities. That's the only way that it makes sense to move forward. So to have those, well, we can have, you know, a subcommittee can meet to help put together a proposal, but then to actually hash it out with the boards, do we need this to be become more of a regular thing, but with the 3rd municipality here, for us to be able to have all of us have a conversation at the same time?
It certainly would be helpful if we can. It's a lot of people to coordinate. It's amazing that we all got here at the same time with a very short time frame that we got, you know, that we made this decision to do this joint meeting. So thanks again to everybody. Hopefully we can bring us all back to the table again.
Absolutely. You may want to have that subcommittee where it's 2 and 2 talking, and then bring it back to your whole committee, since you have a very large group of most 3 people.
The only way to do it.
I mean, I'll be happy to meet as a large committee with everybody. I just have to bring more cups.
Well, I'll reach out to the mayor and village manager of Briarcliff tomorrow for follow-up, and we'll see how everything went with them and what they would like to do also for next steps, and make sure that we're all on the same page.
Great.
And with that, I think, and the school as well. If they're interested, yeah, it's absolutely, it's a great idea.
There may be two different conversations you may have. You may have the government reorganization with the 2 villages of the town, and that be the actual study. But at all times, I recommend bringing in the school superintendents on an informal working At the very least, if you choose to go forward or not, if you create an intermunicipal working group of shared services, including the school superintendents in those conversations, I'm sure that I can't be positive, I don't know your school board, but for most school boards that we work with in this state, they're very interested in working with the communities.
Absolutely. As you saw.
And I think tomorrow night, is it tomorrow?
Yes.
They're having, that the school is having a meeting that, and they bring in all of the, have invited municipal officials to attend their meeting to work on efforts jointly moving forward to help with specific needs of our students. So that should be also interesting. And I think that, we already do have an intermunicipal leadership team that covers, we have law enforcement as part of it, library, the town. I think our next meeting is Friday. Either this Friday or next Friday. Okay, well, it's coming up soon, so it'll be another opportunity. Maybe we can also reach out to Village of Briarcliff and see if they'd like to participate, as well as the Briarcliff schools. All right. So unless the village has anything else, we're going to now adjourn back into our regular meeting because we want to take a vote on our memorandum of a resolution to allow the supervisor to sign a memorandum of understanding about which would basically allow us to change the way that we look at our water system and taxing, not taxing the water utilities. So having had a lot of discussion about that, I think I'm going to turn it over to our clerk. Microphone, and you guys know you can stay or defer.
Oh, we should stay. Okay.
Do you want us to?
No, we got to stay. You can stay.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn this work session in which we will re-enter our regular meeting?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention?
Whereas the town of Boston, the village of Boston, village
I
have
just want to
entered.
maybe wait 1 minute. Okay, wait, no, just hold up for 1 second, because we just want to finish up here. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Whereas the town of Boston and the village of Boston have entered into a intermunicipal agreement regarding the distribution of water for the town, and whereas the IMA will be expiring in December of 2016, and whereas the village and town have had preliminary discussions regarding entering into a new IMA when the current IMA expires that provides a more equal allocation of cost between the village and the unincorporated part of the town. And whereas in order to effectuate a more equitable distribution of costs, the village is seeking an exemption from town taxes for property owned by the village within the unincorporated town that are used to collect, contain, treat, and distribute water. And whereas the determination on the exemption request must, by state law, be rendered by May 31st, which does not permit sufficient time to review and revise the entire IMA and provide for the exemption to take effect in the next tax year. And whereas in the spirit of the discussions between the town and the village, there is a desire to move the process forward, and whereas the town seeks assurance through the adoption of a memorandum of understanding that if the exemption is granted before the execution of a new IMA, that the village will reciprocate in a like manner. Now therefore it is resolved that the supervisor is authorized to execute a memorandum of understanding in the form approved by the town councils, which provides that in return for granting the exemption requested by the village, water rates for the users in the unincorporated town shall be reduced by 1.5 times the rate charged to villagers users to a rate equal to the rate charged to village users. And be it is further resolved that upon the execution of the memorandum of understanding by the town and village, the assessor is authorized to issue the exemption from town taxes requested by the village.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Just. I just want to.
Second, so you can discuss.
No, okay. I just want to clarify, it was just a little, it's not that the town shall be reduced from.
It is.
It's from.
It is correct. It's from
She
the
said
1.5.
by. But she
times
said-
the rate charged to village users to a rate people.
It's written correctly, it was
It was
said.
said,
Oh, okay.
I was reading it
I
so
see.
that it is written correctly, it is that shall be reduced from 1.5. There's a little
Okay,
glitch
got
there.
it. Okay, I understand. Okay. So we have a motion and a second.
And a question.
And a question.
Okay, the town council had some suggestions, and that's all gonna be the way the town council, the way we had talked about this agreement, is the way it will be written? Yeah, there you go.
There has been a draft MOU that has been circulated. I think we were trying to wait and see what was going to happen with the other taxing districts. And so there may need to be some consideration and further looking into the discussion and the impact if the school district doesn't vote, and what those impacts would be, and if we would have to take that into consideration in the MOU. But there has been a draft that's been circulated. It's very basic. You know, we're trying to save most of the nuts and bolts for when the new IMA goes into effect, but just to memorialize that one concept going forward. And if the Villages Council wants to speak to that as well.
You did a good job.
Does that answer your question?
Not quite.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Do you wanna-
Well,
What do you ask, Business?
yeah. So have I seen a copy? Is that what we had discussed? Or I haven't seen a copy of it.
Yeah, we just had, the memorandum of understanding wasn't a new intermunicipal agreement. It was only an understanding that if, basically, the very basics, which is that if the village were to say, if the town were to grant the village the exemption, that the village would reduce the water rate charge to be unincorporated part of the town.
With
That's-
all the other parts of our agreements being kept in place the way they are? That's what I'm
Absolutely.
asking.
Yes, okay. I
Okay,
understand.
that wasn't
So
in this.
That's okay, that's not in this because it's already, looking at it as one unified water system. So
Okay.
that all of the infrastructure is part of that, which it already is part of. The infrastructure and the approach to infrastructure will continue as it should.
Okay, that's what I'm
Already,
trying to understand.
is already in place today to be managed in a systematic approach so that we maintain all of our joint and mutual assets for the best of the whole system.
Okay.
Everybody agree on that? Is there any comment? No? Great, okay. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Happy to hear that we have unanimously voted in favor of this, and it is actually historic, and I thank everybody for participating. I thank the village board for coming out tonight on Tuesday, and I think you have a meeting tomorrow night. So thank you very much for taking your 2 nights in a row. We really appreciate it all the time and effort that went into putting this together. And I think the word that our village engineer, town engineer, likes is kumbaya. So I'm just going to put it out there.
Well, that's your word, really? I'm not envisioning that.
I just have to say that for Paul. Thanks, and thanks so much to Ben and Nicole, for coming down this way tonight also. Appreciate it. And thanks everybody. Have a very lovely Memorial Day. Please remember our veterans who've served this country, who continue to serve this country, all that they have given, and make sure that you celebrate accordingly. Thanks so much, and have a great
Madam
night.
Supervisor, we still have...
Whoopsie, we haven't adjourned. Oh, we have...
We have correspondence to be received and filed. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austin hereby accepts the following. Planning board meeting minutes dated April 20th, 2016. Town planning board grant amended resolution of subdivision and wetlands permit approvals, and the town planning board resolution of subdivision plan approval. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
We have no monthly reports this evening. That brings us to visitor recognition. Is there anyone who's come to address the board? Not seeing any. May I now have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. As I said, have a great night.
It was nice meeting you all.